Poetry? You read poetry? One of my friends was surprised when he heard that I really love poetry. And I do love poetry. I'm just bathing in the poetry of George Herbert right now. He's a 17th century English Anglican deacon. His poetry is amazing. And why poetry? My friend wanted to know. Poetry, what's this whole poetry thing? And I said, well, what do you spend the day thinking about nowadays? No, be honest. Where's your mind spend most of its time right now? Well, don't be that honest. But think about, what do you spend your time thinking about? And I said, what I love thinking about is I will read a wonderful verse in here, and I can contemplate on it for hours and think about it and resonate in it. The best way of describing the poetry of George Herbert is like I like bathing in it, splashing around in it. I don't know, diving deeply into it. I mean, this is just the last stanza of his poem, Easter. Can there be any day but this? Though many suns to shine endeavor, we count 300, but we miss there is but one, and that one ever. Oh, I bathed in that one a real long time. It gave me so much to contemplate and think about. Because the reality is, the resurrection is not something we're ever going to fully grasp with our intellect. It's something that we're going to need to embrace by diving deeper and going into our hearts. To really embrace. What does it mean? There is but one, and that one ever. That's why I love poetry. And I've discovered that poetry isn't all just found in a book. That poetry is found also in a lot of the music that I listen to. So I was fascinated because one of the great Easter songs that is playing a lot right now on my online listening is Death Was Arrested. Death Was Arrested. Just that title alone captivated me. I mean, what does Death Was Arrested mean? And so look at the poetry of the chorus. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. There I am doing my bathing again in the poetry, splashing around. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new. Now life begins with you. Haven't you ever had a song caught in your head? It's wonderful to have this chorus just singing through my being, my soul, my spirit, throughout this Easter celebration. This endless love pouring down. This grace so free, washing, cleansing, splashing. But that doesn't mean I've separated myself from the intellect, because of course I like, well, where did they come up with a title like Death Was Arrested? So I went and researched what inspired the song. Yes, the song was inspired by the tombstone of Samuel Burr. This is what it said on the tombstone. Here rests what was mortal of Samuel Burr, age 42. In search of health far from his endeared home, death arrested his progress on April the 2nd, 1831. Quietly, he fell asleep in the Christian hope of immortality and glory forever. Death arrested his progress. And yet, quietly, he fell asleep in the Christian hope of immortality and glory forever. poetry found on a tombstone. So I spent so much time thinking about, okay, his life was arrested by death. Well, isn't it wonderful? Jesus went and arrested death. Death didn't arrest Jesus. Jesus arrested death. With Jesus, he made death die. The poetry of that is beautiful. This quietly, he fell asleep in the Christian hope of immortality and glory forever. Death was arrested. And that set us free. We do not need to live in fear of death. And that's probably been in some of your thoughts recently, don't you think? Dying of COVID. You can't help but think of death when you see a mask and hand sanitizer. In fact, we're probably going to discover that people are going to start dying of hand sanitizer now. I think it causes cancer. So let's start thinking of death every time. But no. We're set free from that worry. Because of our faith in Jesus Christ, we are set free. As we heard in the poetry of the Gospel of Mark, chapter 16, verse 6, the angel said to them, don't be afraid. I know that you're here looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who is crucified. He isn't here. He has risen victoriously. That's the poetry of Easter. Don't be afraid. He has risen victoriously. And so let us enter into today the beautiful poetry of Easter. So join me in bathing in that living poetry of Easter. Let your contemplation take you farther, deeper, closer to the reality of the promise of eternal life captured in the Gospels. For in doing this, you will find a freedom to live your life anew, like a fresh beginning, like being born again, with the Lord's grace washing over you, his endless love pouring down on us like holy water.